Hey friends, today I want to show you how you can use acrylic paints in your Bible journaling. So we have here my oldest Bible, and in this case I scraped on some acrylic paint on each of the sides. You can see, you can read when you scrape it on with an old card like this, or a scraper, something like this, you can get a thin enough layer that you can see your text. So this is one example, and I'll show you how I do it on some of my other journals. This is my stack of cards. So this is, it's a whole stack. And I found one where I did use acrylic paint. I was reading about Jesus being the bread of life, and so I found an old wheat bread recipe from a cookbook, and I didn't want the bottom recipe that was on here, and so I covered it up with an acrylic and drew some lines on it, did my writing, and there you go. So you can use it in not just your Bible, but in other mediums as well. And then this is my big ledger journal. And so in this page, you can see different ways that we use acrylic paint. So these yellows, these here, were all scraped on with a card. So that would be this, something like this, an old card. Now these, you can see, are like a dry brush used, so just a wee bit of acrylic paint, so it's kind of a dry brush look, but it gives this same feel as this sticker over here. So this is a sticker from the dollar store, and I love using these in this ginormous book because just the size of them is different. So to kind of match this rustic look here, rusty look here, I did some dry brushing on the sides. Down here you'll see there's some sponging or some spattering here, and then this right through here you can see is a spatter paint. So put a little paint in a dish, water it down, and then like just shake it until it spatters. And so those are all different ways and different examples that you can use acrylic paints when you're Bible journaling. Okay, so let's talk paints. So there are different acrylic paints. These are just a Target brand. They're actually quite old. Some of them are, this one's almost used, it's almost dry. These are okay. Just a note that this reminds me, when my kids were little, I would go to my craft room and discover brushes standing in open jars that were completely dried. So if you have little ones, acrylic paints might not be the best idea unless you have a way to lock these up. Just a note, there are some other things that you can use that aren't quite so dangerous with little kids. So just a note. The other thing too is, if you're Bible journaling on a budget and you would like to try some acrylic paints, just start with your favorite colors. So whether you're doing pencils or inks, anything that you can buy in individual colors, just start with your favorite colors. You don't have to buy everyone out there, because these colors, if you like them, no matter what you make, it's going to make you happy. Okay, so these are just regular off-the-shelf inks at your big box store. Now this one is a PBO. I had this one for many years, probably 8 years, and it should still be good. I just saw these advertised. I think it's Jackson Art Supply this morning. Might have them on sale, so you could check that out. That's another one. You can also use paint pens that are acrylic. So this one is, I don't even know where I got this one from, but it's a paint pen. And Posca markers are acrylic paints as well. So these are acrylics in a pen form. Okay, and then this one is not in acrylic. This is gouache. So it can be used like an acrylic because it can be put on in several layers and be thick and opaque, or you can water it down and use it like a watercolor. So here's another budget tip. If you don't want to buy a whole set of acrylics or a whole set of watercolors, you can buy a set of these and use them in both ways. So this has quite the color range, and I would think they should be able to last you for quite a while too. So gouache, it has the opaqueness of an acrylic, but they're water soluble, so you can use them like a watercolor as well. So that's just a tip if you are working on a budget. And these I think I picked up at Michael's, and they weren't too expensive. So that's just a note, okay? And those are the different kinds of paints that you can use. Now this is like a high velocity, a high viscosity. And honestly, I don't even remember what that means. If it's just a thicker paint. Okay, let's talk painting utensils. Now, I've already talked about using just an old card for scraping. You can use, an art spatula to scrape things on, whether it's that sword or this sword. Of course, you can put things on with a brush. These are really good for spattering. You can add things with a sponge, so you can, blot things on. Another interesting idea, and works really well, is to use baby wipes. So to put a little on here, it's wet, so it really washes that paint out. And honestly, you can use just about anything with acrylics to apply paint. So you could use a fork or a toothbrush or any sort of instrument. You could use the back end of your handle just to, you make different sorts of marks with different sorts of utensils. So really, whatever you can be creative with and find around your house that you don't mind getting some paint on and washing it off, you can use any of those things for your tools. And let's just do some examples. So here I've just been cleaning off a scraper, and I'm going to use what is on here to do some painting. So this is how, it's like smooth and really blended out finely, so it's almost like a cloud kind of a texture. But that's what you can get. Let me try a little bit more of this type of paint. So again, this paint is 8 years old. It's very thick, and I'll just use a little bit more, but you can see it's very intense in the middle, but you can get very soft edges on the outside. So this is just one technique for you to be able to use when you're painting with acrylics. Okay, so that is your baby wipe idea. Then you have your scrapers, whether you use something like this to, again, this is like a very thick, but you can see the lines through it. So that's the nice thing about scraping. It gives you a super thin layer, even if you have very intense colors. Okay, let's try the credit card. You just need just a little tiny, you just need a tiny bit on the credit card, and that's it. And this goes a long way. So, okay. And let's see, I'm going to try some gouache just for the fun of it. And I'll try this with a gouache because this is going to be a little bit less intense and less thick. And that's almost too much, but we have a really big paper, so we can do what we want with it. And again, this is, you can see the paper through all of this. So it's a really great kind of a way to get this abstract sort of look, or even just to lay down a layer of color that you can go over the top of with some of your writing. Okay, so that's a scraper, just the credit card scraper. A brush. So let's use a brush. I have a little bit, here's just a little bit of color. I watered it down because it's pretty thick, and that's the nice thing about acrylics is you can water it down. So again, this goes on however you want, whatever size brush thickness. If you want to make this a little bit more opaque, you can always come back to it after it dries and add a little more color to it. So here's a different one that I had. This is also like a Target brand acrylic bottle. Now see, this one you can tell it's not as easy to see the lines through here. So then if that's the case, just water it down a little bit more and you'll get better a better clarity on that. Okay, so that's your brush. What else do we have? Oh yes, sponging. So this can give you some interesting textures. Whether you're, doing flowers, you can do multiple colors and do a whole flower field, but it gives you like this textured effect in the background. Okay, and is there anything else that I wanted to use with this? Yes, there was. Spattering. Okay, let me show you how to spatter. So this one, you want to get your brush loaded with some paint that has been watered down, and you can just like throw it down. So I think this one is a little thick. You can use different size brushes to experiment, different types of paints, and different amounts of water, but this gives you your spattering effect. A lot of people like to use this when it's kind of like a finishing touch on their pictures. Okay, I think that's everything. And so I would just encourage you that whatever you decide to do, that you would just do a little bit more experimenting. You don't have to experiment in your Bible. You can try different pages like this one, or just a sheet of paper, and see what you like the best, what works for you, and just go to town and have fun. I mean, part of this is to discover that God's heart is full of joy, and when you are painting and experimenting like this, you feel that joy. And so that is my prayer for you, that you would just really come to love the process and just be blessed. Thanks so much.